On changing of temporary foreign workers to permanent residents is now the plan. So all the people that they've imported, they're just going to change them to permanent residents, and we're not supposed to notice. And also, I don't think they're going to slow down anything either. Like they may slow it down on paper, but the number of people arriving here through irregular means via airports and things like that is still very high. And they may say they're going to slow this down, but I think the reality is the same net people are going to be arriving here, and we're just going to fast track their citizenship and just say, oh yeah, it's fine. They're citizens now. And I think that's pretty terrible. I've got Jasper fire updates, and the committee was shut down, and details about that coming up. So we've got that for this show today. Trudeau cried during the Liberal failed coup yesterday, apparently. And I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny because it failed. So, and Trudeau turning down immigration, but too little, too late. Oh, I guess that was supposed to go with the top part. Anyway, there's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. We've got to start with Pierre Poilievre, and Pierre Poilievre is talking about how there are Liberals who are running to the bathroom to text reporters about how awful Trudeau is, and they've texted him as well. And not that they're ready to cross the floor, but they're ready to vote no confidence in this prime minister, according to the leader of the opposition, which seems to be a big deal, right? That seems to be something that we talk about. Kevin says, here's a clip of Pierre Poilievre saying Liberal MPs have approached him and admitted that they would vote no non-confidence against Trudeau. Damning. And that is damning. That's up until yesterday, yesterday, they thought that they could fix the party with a letter that says, Justin Trudeau, you're kind of a tyrant, go away. And as the tyrant he is, Trudeau said no. And so now they don't have any recourse. They don't have anything to lose. The party's gone because Trudeau refuses to leave, and they can't do anything about it. So either they do something about it, and they say, I'm going to focus on winning my seat. But focusing on winning your seat maybe includes crossing the floor, right? Here's Pierre Poilievre talking about that.
Yes.
Have you had any conversations with disaffected Liberal MPs about them starting to vote with the opposition or crossing the floor?
I have had conversations with numerous Liberal MPs. Some of them say that they're worried that the carbon tax will cost them their seats and that they want to vote against Trudeau's radical plan to quadruple the tax to 61 cents a litre. And some of them might even be willing to vote non-confidence in Justin Trudeau if that issue comes up again. Obviously, the next election is a referendum on Trudeau's 61 cents a litre carbon tax, and countless Liberal MPs have told our caucus that they're terrified they will be demolished by voters at election time if they vote to cripple our economy with that tax.
So he's got very, very sharp talking points on that: cripple the economy, carbon tax election. Mr. Bernier was saying he wants an immigration election, and I don't think we're getting that. And I'll show you why I don't think that we're getting that in the next series of tabs. But carbon tax, et cetera, very, very sharpened rhetoric from Poilievre. Notable. Okay. Here are some of the Liberal coup planners who are coming out, and Sean Casey's one of the most high profile ones. He's the most open about it, and he gets interviewed here, and he says, I'm going to focus on winning my seat and I'm going to stop talking about this. It's 3 minutes. There are multiple MPs that are interviewed during this series, which is great. Vesper says, the day after, the Prime Minister didn't reflect on what we said. Disappointed. Now I have to worry about keeping my seat. So here's this.
Did the Prime Minister take enough time to decide on whether he should stay or go? Do you feel he took enough time to reflect?
No, I don't. But I don't think that he felt that he needed to reflect at all. I think his mind was made up.
What do you make of that?
Disappointing.
So what does this mean for you next?
Well, what it means for me is that this is a decision that he had every right to make, and he made it. I did my job by voicing what I was hearing from my constituents. Now I've got to take my energy and direct them to winning my seat, and not on internal party matters. As far as I'm concerned, it's closed.
What happens next with the dissenters in the caucus who don't agree that this case is closed?
I can only tell you what happens next for this dissenter, and I just did. I'm going to focus on winning my seat, and not on this. And the others will have to speak for themselves.
Do you think, though, I mean, is there some way forward with the Prime Minister? I mean, there has to be. I'm just sort of wondering, is he seeing something that you're not seeing? Or is he being delusional and thinking that he can win this thing?
I wouldn't call it delusional, but he's seeing something that I don't see, that my constituents don't see.
Is there any market amongst the people you're talking to? Is there any way for him to rehabilitate his brand and get people to listen to him?
They don't think so. That's what I'm getting. But maybe they're wrong. And maybe he's wrong.
Thank you for the Prime Minister coming out.
Okay, and this is Wayne Long, and I mean, I'll let him say
Hours after
just a
the
bit too.
fact, saying he's going to stay on.
Disappointed. I expected him to reflect, or we expected him to reflect for the weekend. I mean, it was kind of given a date of October 28th to come back to the group with an answer, and that's a pretty quick response. I think he needs more reflection. You know, ultimately it's his choice. I'm just personally disappointed that it's less than really, 20 hours after many of us told him he had to, or we thought he needed to step down. He told us he would reflect. It's a pretty quick reflection, and I think he needs to reflect more. The reason I'm doing this is because I care so much about the party. I want us to be around in the future, and I think where we're heading is not on a good path. I mean, you see what happened to Kathleen Wynne's Liberals in 2018, and I just don't want to see us do that. I mean, they haven't recovered yet.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Holy smokeronis. So, some excellent points by some Liberal MPs, right? Very interesting stuff. Kean Bext says Trudeau cried during heated caucus meeting, wants to keep his job, says the internal revolt he's facing is causing him to lose sleep. You know what would make him lose sleep even more? If every single one of them crossed the floor. Because you don't have to wait for a confidence vote to do that. You can just cross the floor, and then Trudeau's cut off at the knees, right? He can't hurt you anymore. So it's one of those things where, I mean, if they're serious, if they actually care like they say they care, they'd cross the floor. And if they don't cross the floor, maybe this whole thing is a nonsense bullshit distraction, because it might be a nonsense bullshit distraction. Really, it might be. Here is Poilievre talking about Liberal MPs running to the bathroom during the caucus meeting and texting reporters.
So that even Rosemary Barton, the Prime Minister's favorite journalist, said people don't have phones in the room and some people are going to the bathroom texting us. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister text those dissident Liberal MPs, tell them to come out of the bathroom and tell the whole world that he's not worth the cost?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in our caucus, people have always been free to speak their mind and have different perspectives.
Right. So here is Poilievre. It's interesting. He's talking here at October 7th. So there's a memorial for the October 7th stuff. He's making the point that Israel has been in lots and lots of wars over the last couple of decades. And that conflict has never spilled over in Canada. That conflict has never seen Canadian streets until this year. And I thought that was an interesting point. I'm not going to play it, but it's like a 4-minute speech here. And I don't care to play it too much. I just thought I was listening to it and I almost cut it from the show because it didn't really have much to do with anything like this. But he does make a good point within this speech, talking about how previously those wars didn't see any kind of action at all on Canadian streets, and now this is happening in Canada, and it seems like the reason is we're importing foreign conflicts. So that's not the conclusion I don't think that Poilievre draws, but that's the conclusion I'm going to draw, and that's why I'm not showing the speech. Okay, so Jared says let's talk about invasions, and that's what's ongoing in the West. If you look at the United Kingdom, if you look at the United States, although honestly, with the amount of people flooding into the United States, it's more noticeable in Canada. So that's weird, right? Like it's like we became a southern state overnight in the blink of an eye. 10 cities. Guelph has authorized 10 cities in parks. Like published a map, and I don't have the map. I'm sorry that I don't have it, but the city of Guelph blocked me. Just on Twitter, I can get to the website, but I don't care to go there right now. Regardless, the map is of the city parks, and in the city parks, there are like color-coded areas where you can put your camp up, where you can put your tent up. What the heck? This is not a solution by any stretch of the imagination. Why are these traders allowed to hand our parkland over to migrants? What the hell is happening? It's so crazy. Like, it is absolutely crazy. So like, it's getting worse, not better. And we need to respond as if these people know what they're doing, because they know what they're doing. What they're doing is taking our tax dollars and buying property and handing that property over to slums. It's so ridiculous. I have to go get it. Here's the public use space bylaw. So there can only be 5 tents, and then you have to have 10 meters and then another 5 tents. Oh, great. Thanks for the 10-meter roadway in between the tents. And then temporary structures are not permitted on or within any of the following areas at any time: playgrounds, splash pads, paths and trails, cemeteries, fenced off dog parks, fenced off leash dog parks, community gardens, fountains, accessibility entrances or ramps, doorways, fire routes, recreational trails, wetlands, or areas susceptible to erosion or flooding. So I guess places that aren't playgrounds are allowed, which is ridiculous. Nowhere is allowed to have an encampment on public space, period. Like, what are you talking about? Temporary structures are not permitted on or within any of the following areas, from 1 hour after sunrise to 1 hour before sunset. So they can temporarily sleep in front of a building at night so long as they're gone an hour before sunrise? I don't think so. This is insane. Temporary structures are not permitted on or within any of the following areas when reserved or booked for use. So you can do it on an outdoor sports field so long as it's not reserved for use. Give me a break. Here's the map, I think it is. Welcome to the City of Guelph Public Space Use Map. Oh, this is interactive. So these sensitive public spaces, fully restricted, designated area, fully restricted, general public space, time restricted. So there's it's this interactive map, and it's got the parks and a legend of how you can set up your encampment in the park. Is this insane? This is completely freaking insane, right? And so there is the city of Guelph is pretending that there's tolerance for this. And there is no tolerance for this. This is an invasion. And why we're allowing public lands to be used by an invading force funded by our tax dollars? No. And if the argument is, no, Mark, the migrants, the invading force, are in the hotels, and these are just poor Canadians, why are we tolerating that? That's even worse. That's orders of magnitude worse. I have absolutely no respect for any person who's signed off on this as a plan, because it's not a plan. It is an invasion. It is a handover of property, public property paid for by tax dollars, to foreigners who have absolutely no skin in the game. This is insane. It's insane. It doesn't make any sense at all. These people are insane. Jared says, Trudeau says Canada's immigration system has made our country the envy of the world. Now you have to understand what he's talking about. When he's talking about the envy of the world, he's saying the globalists in power are really jealous of how many migrants and temporary people that he's been able to cram into Canada, despite the fact that we can't house them, we can't serve them, our healthcare is collapsing, and everything looks pretty terrible in Canada. But hey, come on to Canada, because we've got a tent city and a park for you if you want, right? Gets a little chilly in wintertime. Unbelievable stuff. Alex says how it started. Last year, Canada welcomed more than 405,000 newcomers, the most we've ever welcomed in 1 year. We're building on that and setting higher targets in the 3 years ahead, because immigration is critical to growing our economy and helping businesses find the workers they need, says Justin Trudeau in 2022. And by 2024, October 24, we're going to significantly reduce the number of immigrants coming to Canada for the next 2 years. This is temporary to pause our population growth and let our economy catch up. We have to get the system working right for all Canadians. So he screwed it up. He made other tweets implying that people should come here fleeing persecution and all the rest of it. If you're fleeing persecution, I promise you, a tent in a park in Canada in January is worse than whatever persecution you're fleeing, okay? I promise you that. So, stay where you are. Don't listen to these idiots, because they're idiots and they've destroyed our friggin' country. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And the other part is, I don't even think that they've paused immigration at all because of all the foreigners who just show up, and we have to, give them a tent, give them a hotel room. And the Canadian who loses their home because of the screwed up economy their policies are causing, they get the tent. And that's, again, worse. Absolutely worse. Conwar says, breaking, permanent residency quota reduced, but will prioritize individuals already in Canada on a temporary status. The numbers have been reduced for 2025. I've already said this. By 2027, it's supposed to be 365,000. We build 200,000 homes. If we're lucky, 225,000 homes. We're bringing in almost twice the number of people as the homes we build. Are we stupid? Do they think we're stupid? I'm not stupid. I can do the math. Holy smoke. So here's Mark Miller pretending that we're all idiots. Here we go. He's saying that the people who are already here are the people who are going to be filling those spots for permanent residents. So going from temporary foreign worker or I don't know, student who's protesting to permanent resident, right? Because there's a whole bunch of students who are protesting saying we're here and we should get priority. And looks like that's exactly what the government's going to do. Here we go.
To Canada's permanent immigration targets and aligning them to our economic needs, I'm here to announce and confirm that the current plan reduces next year's projections from 500,000 permanent residents to 395,000, a net reduction of 105,000 permanent residents immediately in 2025. After that, in 2026, a progression down to 380 to stabilize the numbers at 365 in 2027. The lower permanent resident targets, as well as the temporary resident targets that I will speak to in some length in the next few minutes, will have and are expected to impact the housing supply gap by about 670,000 units by the end of 2027. That means that we will not have to build an additional 670,000 housing units by that time. This is significant. Again, some structural aspects to this plan as well is the need to focus on people that are already here. It means that according and consistent with our plan, over 40% of permanent residents will come from the temporary residents that are already in Canada. These people are a young labour pool, they're skilled, they're here, they've begun their process of integration, and it doesn't place the additional demands on the housing, healthcare, and social services that we see with someone that comes directly from another country. It makes sense. We have a large pool. There are ways to integrate that highly talented pool into the permanent residency population.
The people who are coming from the diploma mills? Are you kidding? Holy cow. So that's the plan, I guess. Brittany says, this is from the Globe and Mail article last night. It says Henry Lawton, the founder of Integrative Trade and Economic, a former federal economist, said he expects the governments to also set out a target for converting temporary residents to permanent residents. He said many of the people who get who get the right to stay in Canada permanently are in fact already living in Canada. I'm anticipating they will differentiate between permanent residents who they admit from abroad from those they admit from within Canada who are already here. He said it would achieve a number of objectives, including appearing to slow the net population growth. Is that fake though? Is it just the appearance of the slowdown of population growth? I think so. Riley says, Mark Miller says over 40% of new permanent residents will come from the young labor pool of temporary residents already in Canada. So all those people who are here, yeah, they're staying. You're welcome, Canada. We're fixing immigration, they said. BS. 243 says aerial footage of a massive migrant camp in East Kildare. This is in Ireland. What were formerly fields beside a highway, now have 2 marquee structures, dozens of modular huts, paved roads, electricity, etc. No consultation with locals, no effort to explain who will be living here. Ireland is full. So like, it looks like a military barracks if you were to ask me, right? Looks like, it looks better than some Roman encampments I've seen in movies, right? From Gladiator, right?
Okay, so we'll bring it right up. We'll go up to 120 meters, get an overview of the entire site. Quite a big one. So again, estimates are that there are 1,000 people.
Max altitude reached.
Yeah. Quite a site. Yeah, so again, estimates are that there are up to 1,000 people living here. Locals don't seem to be happy about it. Nobody is. Nobody likes strangers in their community. We hope and pray people can integrate, but as this continues, it's just recently announced that there's 90 new centres have come online. How that will pan out in the future, we don't know. We will visit every last one of them to document it and keep an eye on what's going on.
So there you go. This is I don't think there's another word for it.
So
it's an invasion. It's an invasion. Here is Darshan Maharaja, and he says, in this address to the media in question and answer period, Poilievre gives his most clear enunciation yet of what his immigration policy would be if and when he becomes the prime minister. Here is part of it. I've got the whole speech here. You can watch it. It's only 10 minutes total. Here is the clipped out version of part of that speech, and then it's got other things clipped into it. With, you know what, we'll watch this one here. This is 450. right here. So this is Poilievre talking about how his immigration policies would play out. Here we go.
Doctors, 32,000 immigrants.
Too fast. Sorry. Too fast. My bad. I try and listen to things most of the time. Where are we at? 454. Here we go.
2,000 immigrant nurses in Canada today who cannot work because they can't get a license. We will create, well, in the professions, what we did as a country in the trades 7 decades ago. We will create a national licensing standard. Provinces can voluntarily adopt a blue seal. So immigrant doctors and nurses can take a test, prove they're qualified, and get to work reducing those wait times in our hospitals. We will screen people coming in to keep terrorists and criminals out and allow law-abiding people into our country. And when they get here, they will see that the Canadian promise is restored. A promise that anyone from anywhere can do anything, where it doesn't matter where you come from, it matters where you're going. It doesn't matter who you knew, it matters what you can do. A country where hard work gets you a powerful paycheck, that buys affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods. To do it, we will have a common sense plan to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, stop the crime, and repair our broken immigration system. Let's bring it home.
Is that robust? I don't think that's very robust. Like it's kind of truncated. Here's the other clips that were mixed in here. Well done. Lots of people like to, when people tell you who they are, believe them. Here's Poilievre telling you who he is.
A direct flight to Amritsar. We will rebuild the Canada that we know and love. A Canada where it doesn't matter if your name is Martin or Mohammed, Singh or Smith, Poilievre or Patel.
The solution is obvious. End the deportations and allow them to apply just like everyone else to become permanent residents. That's what I'm calling for. Stop the deportations. Listen, we have a worker shortage in Canada. We have a demographic problem. Our population is too old. We need
We should have people have babies. We should let people have babies. We don't have babies in Canada because it's too expensive. I know people who have pets because having a child is too expensive and scary. And it wouldn't be as scary if they could afford a house and, a yard to put their dog out in, and then, oops, maybe a baby happens, right? But like in the situation that they're in, and a lot of people are in the same situation, it's too expensive, right? And they have all the excuses in the world to not take that step. And it's artificially keeping everybody in a state of arrested development, honestly.
700 young people. We need 700 young people to work in our factories, in our hospitals, in our shopping centers, driving truck. We need these workers in our country. It makes no sense for Canada to send them back when they could stay here and earn powerful paychecks and raise their families in peace.
So there you go. That's the fix, everyone. That's what people are going to love. They're going to enthusiastically vote for this. This is going to be a super majority. Understand what we're voting for. That's it. Okay, that's the plan. Maxime Bernier says, pandering Pierre. Okay, he's responding to Pierre Poilievre. Poilievre is saying, today's immigration flip-flop is a massive admission of failure by Justin Trudeau. Desperate to save himself from Liberal MPs who want him gone, Trudeau now admits his immigration policies cause housing, healthcare, and job crisis, but he can't fix what he broke. Only common sense conservatives can do that. Call a carbon tax election so we can bring it home. So it's all pandering. All back to the rhetoric that he uses, the stump speech, right? Bring it home and all the rest. Build the homes, fight the crime, blah, blah, blah. People love it. People love it. It is easy. It's like bite-sized, digestible. You just pop it in your mouth, right? Somebody says, blah, blah, blah. You can say, bring it home. And people love it. People love it. Maxime Bernier says, pandering Pierre, who until 3 minutes ago supported mass immigration like Trudeau, claimed immigration has no impact on housing prices, wanted to bring in more foreign workers faster and stop the deportation of fake foreign students, is now forced to play stupid politics with this issue as the Liberals pivot because he doesn't have any clear position to rely on. And in the same breath, he still says we need a carbon tax election to fix these problems, not a mass immigration election. This guy isn't serious. This is as much an admission of failure on his part as it is for Trudeau. So I think that's an accurate representation, honestly. And there's more footage of Pierre Poilievre pandering to certain demographics, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on and on and on. 3 minutes, right? I didn't have enough time to show all of it, right? So you should check that out. Links in the description. Danielle Smith. This is interesting. This is interesting to me. this whole thing, I was like, there's a lot to unpack in this. Danielle Smith says, along with the Minister of Immigration and Multiculturalism, Mohammed Yassin, we have issued this joint statement on today's federal government immigration announcement. Alberta has a long history of welcoming newcomers, and we plan to maintain that reputation. However, the federal government's reckless and irresponsible open border immigration policies permitting almost 2 million newcomers to enter Canada last year alone have led to unsustainable financial pressures on all provinces. With the cost of food, energy, housing, and everything else in this country increasing, and with tens of thousands of new people moving to Alberta, monthly, our hospitals and schools are at or above capacity. As a province, we need a reprieve from this explosive population growth so we can catch up with these pressures. So do all provinces. The federal government's plan to cut more than 105,000 new permanent residents will not solve these pressures when they're bringing in almost 2 million additional people annually. We call on the government to cut numbers of newcomers to Canada from almost 2 million to well under 500,000 annually until further notice. Ottawa's priority should be on reducing the number of temporary foreign workers, international students, and asylum seekers, not on reducing provincially selected economic migrants. She's got a point. There's a whole bunch of, why can't we have babies? Right? Why are we fighting to fill jobs and things with economic migrants and moving people from all over the world? Why don't we have a situation where we have enough workers because the society at large has enough babies and they need jobs when they grow up, right? So like they need jobs. We should probably rethink that. They need a way to sustainably feed themselves for the long term. I think probably an acre of land would do that. If everybody got an acre of land and like the infrastructure existed to like, make that land your producing land, right? You could still get chocolate cereal, right? You could still go to the grocery store, probably. Anyway, Amazing Zoltan's talking about this. This is immigration and housing. He says the housing silver bullet isn't immigration, it's mortgage finance rules. A thread. He says, I don't expect this to be a popular take, and it probably won't win me any friends, but it's a subject that requires addressing. Canada's mortgage financing rules are completely outdated and ridiculous. One of the arguments he makes here is basically the mortgage stress test is already set too high and people's salaries too low and they can't ever qualify. Like it's a really weird situation. 2 announcements, one reducing the rate of immigrants to Canada and another reducing interest rates in Canada are in the rearview mirror today, and so I felt this was a relevant time as I need to discuss the issue of housing, immigration, and mortgage finance rules. The purpose of this thread is to demonstrate 2 things. Number 1, this Canadian housing crisis is primarily a supply-side problem, not a demand-side problem. And number 2, the home ownership crisis is a product of bad banking policy more than it is of bad immigration policy. Interesting. Why do mortgage rules matter? For starters, early 100% of people buying a first home will require a mortgage to do it. Thus, when we use the term affordability, it's a misnomer. Affordability doesn't mean how much you can afford to pay, but rather how much you qualify for. Let's use an example to illustrate the point. Imagine that I'm a mortgage broker working in Kelowna, and someone named Bob comes in off the street to get a mortgage. Bob earns $70,000 a year. Bob has 0 debt. Bob has $25,000 saved as his down payment, and let's say the rate is 4%. Bob qualifies for a home worth $360,000. We immediately run into an obvious problem here. There are no homes worth $350,000 in Kelowna, and most certainly no new homes. But wait, we have another problem to deal with first. Based on these values, you can afford $1,866 monthly payment, $350 mortgage default insurance, $13,000 net mortgage amount. No, that's not right. Oh, net mortgage amount $341, purchase price $366. So mortgage default insurance is $13,000 adding on. So the total price is $366, $217. That's what you can afford. The purchase price of $360 I pre-approved Bob for would have been before the B20 test, policy implemented and enforced by the federal government's banking regulators, requiring prospective buyers to qualify for a mortgage at a higher rate than the rate they'd actually pay. Once I factored in the B20 test, which requires me to determine Bob's ability to afford a home at a rate of 6% rather than 4%, Bob only qualifies for a home worth $305,000. In theory, this sounds great for the buyer. It lowers the price and protects them from overborrowing. In practice, however, that's not what the stress test has done. For one, prices haven't come down since the stress test was implemented. They've gone up. Even worse, now housing construction is down, some places flatlining in others, despite adding 2 million people to the country. How could this be, right? And so I'm not going to continue this thread because it's a little bit long, but it's fundamentally made the point that I wanted to make in that the banking rules preclude a lot of people from being able to buy a house unless you've got money coming from somewhere else, family, maybe foreign money, who knows where the money comes from for all these other people to buy the houses. People are investing in Canadian housing and using it as rentals and all sorts of other stuff. But I don't even know if Canadians are doing that. Foreign people seem to be doing that. But the banking structure has created a situation where almost nobody can afford a house on paper anyway. So holy cow, right? Like it seems insane. It seems absolutely insane to be in a situation where the banks are making it impossible to buy, right? And like, but that's where we are. So interesting stuff. And not just the banks, like it's circumstances as well. And the governments have done this, but it's moved us into a position where a lot of people just can't afford housing. And so what's happening is the market is incentivizing a different kind of housing. And people aren't building the kinds of houses that they used to build, right? Meaning like detached homes, 3-bedroom, 1,200 square foot with a backyard, right? And so what happens when you stuff people into stacked housing? Fewer babies, right? And your growth comes from importing people from foreign countries. Crazy town. Crazy stuff. America says 425,000 known convicted criminal illegal immigrants, including 13,000 murderers and 15,000 rapists, have been knowingly allowed into the United States. Our border is not secure. And so like, that's not great. This is a PAC announcement, but it's a commercial. It's just listing what I've just read. So pretty wild stuff. This is not just happening in Canada, but the mechanisms to make it happen in other countries look a little bit different. Like in the United Kingdom, they talk about the boat people coming across the channel in the boats, right? In the small boats. And I mean, didn't the United Kingdom have a navy to defend itself from people who were invading its shores by boat like that? Like, and what do you do with people who are trying to invade your country by boat? Do you pick them up and bring them to your country and then give them like a better package than retirees get? Or do you sink the boat? Like, I think that probably you sink the boat, but what the government is doing is bringing people in and giving them better packages than the retirees get. So like, should we go to somewhere else, some other country, and maybe they'll give us a retirement package? Like, it's insane that we are. Why are we? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It doesn't help us, right? It doesn't help you or me. It helps foreign people who arrive here because they've been incentivized to do that and somebody's paid for their travel as well. So it's pretty wild stuff. Let's do our grab bag. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful